Hello everyone, welcome back to my video. It has been a long time. So in this video, I'm gonna make McCalls R12109 View B. So that will be the blouse that you see that the model is wearing. So let's just catch up. So where have I been? Well, if you've been following my channel, my last video was making a pattern. I can't remember exactly what McCall's pattern it was because that was about like back in 2022, 2021 precisely. And this video is me actually sewing during my last year of college. So I've been attending college. I actually switched universities, which I'll explain later on in the video. My first college, I went there, and I'm a 2020 graduate. So I graduated high school in 2020. The world was crazy. I stayed at my first college for a year, and it was a great program. I absolutely loved the school, but I couldn't stay due to familial reasons, so I had to end up moving back home. And as you see, I've been here ever since. My college experience has been interesting, to say the least. And I know I should be talking about what I'm sewing here, but I'm gonna get to that a little bit later. I need to rant this out. So, with my college experience, I had so many expectations. I grew up watching a lot of the movies. So, like, I was born in the early 2000s. I watched, I think it was like Drumline, which happens to be like my hometown's, like, at least the way they set the movie. I think the newest one, it was at a very predominant, HBCU in my hometown. So, yeah. Anyway, to get back to the point, I will say to the least, I really didn't make any long-term friends while I was in college. I attended, well, at least for my major, I was a fashion major. Fashion development and product management was my concentration. And also, I found it very challenging. When I was a girl, I wanted to be a fashion designer. I just knew like I wanted to be in fashion. I grew up watching America's Next Top Model, Tyra Banks, all the controversy that happened with her over the years. I just love the idea of modeling clothes. And at first I wanted to be a model, but at the time, there weren't women who looked like me. And I'm not saying that because obviously like, there are black models, but at the time, because of my height, I was like, I don't know if they'll let me on the runway. And then like the minimum requirement is like either 5'8" or 5'10". So I'm like, okay, what else can we do? So I'm like, okay, let's be a fashion designer because anyone can be a fashion designer if they wanted to. I decided to pursue fashion design, and there was a little bit of pushback for that. I feel like the liberal kid, in a family full of like corporates and you know degrees that make a lot of money. That's not to say that my degree won't. It definitely will, but it's had its time. Anyway, at this point in my life, I'm just making a garment because I haven't touched a sewing machine probably since that last video. And I'm like, since you're going to be going to a class that's going to require a lot of sewing, like you might need to get yourself acquainted with a few machines. So, okay. Anywho, how was, learning fashion at my college? It was difficult because I grew up thinking like, okay, basically like, you take the measurements on the body and you draft it out and you go through a couple fittings and boom, you have a garment. And that is still true. However, I learned about a lot of new technologies. My first year, I was learning about CAD. Specifically, I was using Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop. I had never touched Adobe in my life. I was like, what the heck is this? I don't know how am I going to survive. I will let you know, like, my last 3.5 years at my college, I was just surviving. I was surviving on a prayer and food. And thankfully, a few people that could help me along the way. And learning about all the textile designs and learning just in general, like how different things are made, like even just like the designs on textiles itself. Then there's like 3D modeling, and I learned Clo 3D. That is a whole nother beast in itself. People say it's easy. I don't know. I think it's just because I never got introduced to it at the time that everything felt so rushed. And I even can still say now that I've graduated, for me, I feel like I really didn't enjoy my college experience But I guess to say, like, I didn't stay on campus either, so, that's probably a factor with it as well. I just want to say for those, I'm really making this video because I want to show people that you can still do things and you'll definitely surprise yourself. I will say that I'm a beginner sewer. Even though I've had the knowledge of sewing ever since I was like in high school, that was like when I was like 16 years old. And this is me at like 22 really getting into it. But okay, instead of my ranting, I'm going ahead and talking about what's going on in the video. So you see in this clip, I am making the casing. I believe this is for the neckline. So the pattern itself is like I guess I would say scaled or expanded a lot bigger, because around the neckline you're going to be actually gathering the fabric in, because the actual elastic band is smaller than the casing, and you're going to be doing that for the neckline and the waistline. And I'll say, like, this fabric, which it wasn't the fabric was very pretty. I believe it's 100%, no, is this viscose? It's either viscose or 100% cotton. But either who, yeah, I had to go in and do that. Y'all, they did not tell me how long this would take. I mean, oh, and you can see my little nephew in the background. And for those coming at me that, like, I didn't blur his face, like, his mother gave me permission, me and her sisters, leave me alone. And obviously, like, I would not even post any child without, parental, permission in the first place. But me and her are close, we love each other, and, he's my biggest supporter. But I had to, like, watch him a few times during this, like, when I was making it, because he wanted to touch the machine. And I will say, do not touch the machine. I don't care how old you are. If you have not sewn or you're not preparing yourself to sew, don't do it. Please. Please. Because I've already hurt myself a couple times on my own machine with a beginner's trial. Anywho, getting back to the video, I am sewing down the casing, and this was actually the easiest part. I think mainly you just have to really watch, like, your stitch. I can be a little bit of an OCD. Like, when I'm sewing, I want my stuff to look crisp. So, like, in the clip before, like, as you see me, like, multiple times pressing down the casing, I'm like, I want this thing to stay. Now, could I have pinned it down? Absolutely. But to be honest, this was taking a lot longer. And I know people who can do this, like, literally, like, one step. That is not me at all. I do not do that in one step. I need to be thorough. I need to take my time. Because when you're a beginner, you want your stuff to look nice. Because people who sew, and you guys know this if you're sewers as well, sometimes you want to go for that homemade look, but most beginners want that professional look, like when they buy in a store. And, believe it or not, as a person who studied fashion design, who's also studied, product management, as well as, like, the supply chain and manufacturing, you really don't want that stuff in stores. You really don't. It is, honestly, just not good. Like, so many factors of it I can talk about alone, which has made me, as a person who likes to create designs, like, really more conscious about what I'm consuming. And I'm gonna go on this rant because I have time to talk about it. This video is like almost 15 minutes long, and I have the time to talk about it, so we're gonna listen to my rant yet again. So, going into the whole, like, fashion design, product manufacturing, supply chain, sourcing the fabric itself is, like, one thing. If you're trying to be ethical, that is great. Most likely you're going to pay for it, and most consumers don't have the funds. And in this economy, I mean, I can't blame them. I can't even afford myself. I'm a starving artist. But if you really want the right stuff, like, number one, if you want to just, cut straight to the chase, stop buying polyester. Stop buying any and all synthetic fabrics if you can afford it. Like, I would rather be in a knit or woven 100% natural fiber than be in polyester. Honestly, polyester is so uncomfortable. Anyway, talk about this clip. Look at how well I did. Like, I'm right by that fold. Like, just right by it. So, I'm really proud of myself. Just pressing that again to look extra crisp. But, getting back to the main thing. Yeah. Just no, do not go with any synthetic fabric if you can help it. But I understand for some people, okay, look at you. Look at the gathering. Look at the puckers. And honestly, for this fabric, I think honestly the pattern is kind of like the same. Well, it's slightly different, but I haven't been able to tell what is the front, what is the back. I'm assuming based on how it's fitting on my body, that is the front that you're looking at, and the back of what you saw is the back. But I'll let y'all know this now. So for the girlies who have a little bit of more chest, this pattern could be slightly altered. And when we get to that part of the video, like, you will be able to see it. It looks great. For the girls who love it, love it. Me personally, I would have loved if I had expanded it down, and I'm thinking about making this pattern again anyway because I have some extra fabric and I want to wear this for the summer. But overall, okay, yeah, first of all, I'm getting off topic. Y'all, you can see, like, my brain is rambling all over the place. Yeah, no synthetic fabrics. Second thing I will say is that, like, the dyeing process, like, I've learned about different types of dyes for, either natural and synthetic fibers. A lot of these dyes in itself are just deadly. Well, I feel like that's a stretch. Not really, but it is a big stretch. It's just really unhealthy to consume because a lot of the dyes, like, the people who actually are working, like, first-hand encounters with the dyes are really prone to a lot of health risks down the road. Also to say, like, we can also talk about slave labor, which I feel like the biggest thing that, the world saw was what happened in Bangladesh. God rest those people's souls. I, as a person who's learned how to sew, and, most people who've either sewed maybe one garment as a hobby or even they sew as a career, like, making clothes is not, it's not just simply like putting two fabrics together and, like, just going through that. There's a lot of math that goes into it. There's a lot of, like, testing because, not all fabric is the same. And you'll learn that as you create different things. And then on top of that, like, there's all different types of ways you can structure fabric. Like, there's interfacing, stabilizers, for whatever you want whatever you want your finished product to be, there's a lot of structuring that goes with it. Fashion design is a form of engineering. But sadly, I believe, like, most people, like, unless you're looking at, like, haute couture and, most famous fashion designers, and they create these really beautiful dresses and elaborate designs, and the work goes out to them, most people don't understand there's so much engineering that goes into making clothes. Obviously, what I'm using is a commercial pattern. I mean, that's still a lot in itself. It's, there's a lot of sewing techniques. Like, this one, obviously, the main gathering is happening, like, with the neckline and the waistline, but also, when it comes down to the sleeves, I personally hand gathered. And let me tell you, like, that is time consuming. It is so time consuming. But nevertheless, like, this is something I love to do. It's just it's a labor of love. You really have to love sewing and just getting through this. Well, okay, y'all, as you see, I am also finishing up this casing. Just to get back to the video, my nephew helped me out, as you saw. He honestly was really great. I just had to monitor him. But yeah, I'm just trimming up some of the hanging threads and having difficulty finding the light switch. But I'm about to show y'all what the casing looks like. I believe I did a pretty darn good job. As you can see, basically, like, almost right next to the fold, which is what you would want. But anyway, yeah, you're about to hear me talk for the first time in the video. Hey y'all, so this is the first part of the video where I'm actually talking. Yesterday I had so many of my family came over because we just had a family reunion, so I'll show you how far I've gotten in my sewing project. So as you know, I'm working on currently the top, and the casing was the hardest part for me. I have no idea why. I followed the directions, but then for some reason, when I actually tried to insert the elastic into the casing, it didn't fit at all. So I had to unpick the casing, and that was so time consuming. But when I got it right, which is slightly bigger than what the pattern actually recommends, but by the time I got it through, it was easy, and then it created this beautiful casing. As you see, like, it's all bunched up perfectly. And I also did that for the bottom as well. So for the bottom, I actually had an easier time with the bottom because I didn't have to work around a lot of curves. So yes, this is what it looks like so far. So all I have left to do is to attach the sleeves, but I have to gather the sleeves first. And then after that, it will be putting on the belt and the thread loops, which I've never done that before. So I'm gonna take a quick intermission to learn how to gather properly and as well as learn how to do thread loops. So we'll be right back. Oh, I forgot to mention one thing. So if you buy the pattern, and just a reminder, here is the pattern. That's give y'all enough time to look at it. Inside the pattern, and I wonder if they do this for all the patterns, I do not know, but for the pattern instructions, there will be a QR code at the bottom, and it includes a glossary of the type of finishings or the type of techniques you have to do in order to complete this project. And once I scan the QR code here, I think it will lead me to the Simplicity or the McCalls page where they actually have all the different videos of the different sewing techniques or the different finishes for garments. Or you can just go to YouTube University. I love YouTube University myself. I find it very trustworthy. And so yeah, I will just go ahead and get started, but I wanted to go ahead and let y'all know that if you don't know how to do something, that is a-okay. I've only been really sewing, I say for about maybe a year and a half to 2 years consecutively. I'm not the best sewer, but because I take my time to learn and I'm always open to grow, this project will always be fun. And for beginners, just like myself out there, don't be afraid to take on a new project. You never know what you're gonna get. Sometimes it might not be the best, but in the best case scenario, it will be the best project you've ever done and you'll have the greatest time doing it. So that's just my little advice to you and a bit of encouragement. So I'm gonna just go ahead and get back to my learning. And yeah, just wanted to, listen to the video just to let y'all know that you don't have to stop, just keep trying. And if it's not perfect, then just do it again. And if that doesn't work, hey, it was a good experience. So I'm gonna go ahead and go. Bye. I sounded so full of life in that video. And it's so funny to me because when I made this video, I believe this video was in somewhere in August, my birthday month. I'm a Leo. But I've sounded so full of energy and so full of hope. And I still am, but that last semester of college it put me through the ringer. Let me tell you, creating a fashion collection is not as easy as it looks. And when you're a beginner and you're applying new techniques, ooh, ciao. Yeah, I'm very proud of myself for what I did create, but it was a lot of work. I mean, all my life I had a fight moment. But I know later on in this clip, I'm going to be showing you what I did for the sleeve caps. These sleeve caps, I don't know. It was just, well, I already said, I think earlier in the video, no, somewhere in the video, I know I mentioned it somewhere in the video, it's probably later on in the clips, that I actually never successfully sewed sleeves. And that's a whole story in itself. When I was at my first college, I did have a class about sewing in general, and we learned how to put things together, in terms of learning how to thread the machine properly, how to wind a bobbin, all the basics. And then, sewing up, a basic bodice sloper, which, for those who sew know, it's the bodice front, bodice back, and the sleeves. And I failed that exam so hard. But y'all about to see the sleeves. So right here, this one was pretty good. Your classic gathering stitch at the longest stitch length, which for me it's 4. And, pretty much is inside the seam allowance, which, for most commercial patterns here in the US, that is 5/8 of an inch. But this other one, believe it or not, this was actually my first attempt. It was very, very wonky. You can see it's just, it's not going right. And I wasn't even going to attempt to try to gather that. I'm going to mess up this sleeve hard. So I'm no girl, we're going to have to run it back. We're going to start over. Wind it up. I've been recently seeing a lot of TikTok videos about Bailing Out Loud, and I actually haven't yet to watch that show. It seems really interesting, especially for a person who has Tourette's. That's I'm getting off topic. It's a whole other conversation for another day. But yeah, in this clip, I'm going to go ahead and trim up my seams. Not trim up my seams, but trim up my threads, trying to be a proper seamstress over here, pressing it out. And that is so important, y'all. Please press each seam you create. please press it out, because the more you learn that, especially as a beginner sewer, the easier it will be as you go on. And honestly, that's the trick to having, really good looking seams in a garment. But I'm about to stop this clip here because y'all gonna hear how bad this machine sounds. What the heck? No wonder why it was off. I'm like, who pulled my thread so dang tight? Oh. Okay, so y'all heard how much that serger sounded like a rickety bridge. I got it from Joann's, and I'm not saying like you cannot buy a brother serger. Like brother sergers, I personally, in terms of like operation use, have never had a problem with it at all. Like it's done what it's needed to do, and I've oiled the machine. So like I don't know. When I read the instruction manual, it says to oil it so like it kind of sounds more silent and smooth. And but when I do it, it just, I mean, y'all heard it. It was horrible. Sounded like a rickety bridge. Like it was very loud. I hated honestly using it most of the time just because how loud it was. But as a person who went to fashion school and had access to sergers, like the idea of not finishing a seam, and I hate to say it, I'm gonna be that person. I do not want to finish my seams with a zigzag stitch. Yes, I said it. I don't. For me, it just that screams homemade. But I understand for those who use it, like, please use it. But I would actually suggest you learn other types of finishes if possible. Like, if you don't have a serger at home, there's French seams, there's flat felt seams. I think there's something called Hong Kong seams, or even like a bias seam. Like any seam would do for me other than the zigzag stitch. But like if you need to use it, use it. If I think, because there's some seam lines like princess seams that is a curve, you need to clip into it. I think the best way to go about that would be probably like use a zigzag stitch and then probably use some fray check, just so like it doesn't fray as you wash it over time. And that was my first thing I learned with the first dress I made. I did not know, I don't know, in my head, because I had never sewn before. Well, I have, but like it was a long break from then when I had sewn my first dress on this channel. The that None of my seams were finished, so when I put it in the washer, so many seams were just fraying horribly. And like that's when I learned, I'm like, okay, next time I make a garment, I am having a serger with it. So the serger that you see, my grandfather, I call him Pop Pop, he invested in that for me, and I still have yet to make garments to actually make for gifts or birthdays or even Christmas. And y'all know, like, people who make things in families, like, they'll be asking, like, oh, can you make this for me? And I feel a lot of pressure from that, especially because, like, I want to be a fashion designer. Like, I want to be an apparel designer. So making apparel, like, that's a whole nother thing in itself. But as you see in this clip, I am going to go ahead and finish the bottom, in which I'm doing the same thing like I did for the, like, I'm basically making a casing like I did for the neckline and the waistline. And, it's really tedious. It's a very tedious process. Like, it looks good. It looks really good. And earlier in the clips, you saw me, like, actually measuring out. Like, I didn't use the guide that was provided for me. I just honestly measured around my elbow, and then, you know, just use that. And honestly, you might as well, because everyone's, you know, circumference is different. If you happen to match it, then that's great. But it's just so much pressing that goes in here. And even then, like, unless you have fabric that really, like, holds its shape, and I think this one's, like, holding it really well, most of the times you're going to have to pin it down or go over it multiple times. I was going over it multiple times. Me looking back, I would have pinned that thing down. It would have been pinned and been done. And, you know, if you have even more time, I would have done a base and stitch through that thing. Would have basted it just so it can hold its shape. But, you know, I'm trying to do the tried and true method, using my seam gauge, getting the right, you know, depth of a seam allowance, and just going right and forth through it. Oh, you can kind of see my finished seam, but anyway, yeah. Okay, so I finally finished ironing down the casing for the sleeve, and I had to go over it multiple times because my iron wasn't hot enough, but trying to get the perfect seam allowance, which for me I had to do like 7/8 of a seam allowance just so that it could pass through. And I think that's what also the pattern instructions also recommend for you to use. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this through the machine, and I'm gonna leave a small opening. Preferably I'm gonna do it around the seam allowance, so you can see probably like in that area. And I'm gonna do that for both the sleeves, and then I'll go in with my safety pin, which I gotta find that somewhere, and go in and insert the elastic in the casing. And then finally, we're going to attach it to the bodice. So I'm excited. Let's get this started. Where's the sleeve aspect of it? Ouchie! That hurt! So yeah, this is what you get when you do not have your own sewing space and you're basically at the family house that everyone meets up at, and they play, you know, TV really loud, like you're hearing everything. Pretty much Jeopardy's on. So yeah, you know, I'm going through these sleeves. I think I'm gathering, no, sorry, in this clip I'm actually like inserting the elastic through it, and I'm like closing it up just so everything gathers nicely, and I'm pulling it out so like all the gathering can evenly distribute. And as you see me, I'm looking over the instructions multiple times because in my head, like, I feel like I'm just not doing it right.
This is the hardest part for me. I barely did gathering when I was taking my first sewing class. I really don't even know how much to gather. Like, I'm assuming that it needs to gather enough to where, like, this part, like, before the cap of the sleeve, like, this needs to be kind of flush with it. And, like, I see at this point, and it's supposed to go to that point, and so, like, I can pin that together. But it, okay, so according to these notches are correct. Okay, so I know for certain this is this sleeve. Y'all, I don't know why I'm so confused. This is the most confusing part of sewing for me, sleeves. I'll give y'all a fun little fact about myself. When I actually ended up transferring colleges, so my first college that I went to, I had my first sewing class, and in our final test, we had to essentially sew a shirt. So we learned how to assemble a shirt, or like this is a basic top, which is, you know, bodice front, bodice back, and sleeves. And I got the shoulder seams and the side seams correct, but when it came down, we had to show two different forms of putting in the sleeve. So we had to ease in a sleeve, and then we had to set in the sleeve. And honey, let me tell you this. I was not able to set in loosely. And really looking back, I never approached a sleeve since. So this is my first sleeve I'm doing since starting college. And that was about like, 4 years ago, because I'm about to graduate. Oh man, this is gonna be fun, y'all. This is gonna be so fun. As I sit here struggling really to lay down these seam allowances. But this is gonna come out so cute. It's gonna come out so cute. At least one thing I remember, you always at least you always set these notches, like you align the notches. Okay, so I gathered the heck out of this, and to be honest, like this has not been the. I don't know if this is even the correct gather. I gathered this so much where it's like really puckered. Um, this is not how I intended it to be, but this is what it's going to be because it didn't make much sense to me. Like where I placed the dots at, the dots weren't lining up, and then the sleeve cap was like still too big for what this sleeve hole, like the sleeve hole intended to be. So, but honestly, like no one else is wearing this but me, and we're just gonna keep it. We're just gonna keep it right as. So I'm gonna get this sewn at 5/8 of the seam allowance. And we're gonna get this weave through. Okay, we're just gonna. Okay. There's such a little space for it to go through. Okay. Okay. So right here, we're gonna get started. We're gonna sew this, and I'm just gonna take it nice and slow.
Yeah, so I was taking my time, really trying to make sure I got this right because going through the machine, like it felt like it was just so thick. And there's probably a correct way you're supposed to like gather. I'm trying to remember if I had the gathering fabric, up or down. But either way, it was just difficult putting it through the machine because I really had to like wiggle my way through there. But this section was a labor of love. Like I truly learned about gathering and like when you put it through a machine, like just how tedious it can be. But nevertheless, it got done. That's why this clip got sped up because if I actually put it in real time, like y'all, I'm going so slow because I really care about having like really good seam allowances and in general just like really good seams because stuff shows like certain things like if it's like an eighth off like I don't think that's gonna show but if it's like a quarter to half an inch I'm like babe that's gonna show it's gonna show and you're gonna feel it when you put it on like there's just certain things that you shouldn't play with and get granted we have gathering there so there is some space to move however like if this was a more fitted sleeve yeah babe no you just took away some of your space but nevertheless, we got through it. We survived. And so it's good to stay positive, even if you're a beginner, just learning how to take your time and stay positive. That's the most important thing here. If you stay positive, you can do anything.
Ah, not the gangrene things. Not the gangrene. Y'all, I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm tired. I had to do so much with this, but the seam looks great. Oh my god, I have so much thread in the way. I can't tell which is what. Okay. 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 The seam looks great. I mean, she's a little sloppy through here, but nothing that a little thing can't do. There's a little extra pepper here.
I'm not taking it out. I mean, I know why people take it out, but like, if I also have like this seam, like I have a surgery, so like, should I really take it out? Yeah. All right, so I ended up sewing on the second sleeve off camera, and y'all, I'm actually very happy how it came out. So this is the shirt. Actually, let me pull this out. Well, as you see, the seams are done. I haven't trimmed them, but the reason why I'm not trimming them is because I feel like there's no reason to trim if you have a serger, because it trims and then encloses the raw edge with an overlock stitch. So I'm gonna actually put this inside out just so I can see what it looks like, because I'm just really happy. Okay, this is the front. Oh my gosh, it looks so cute! Oh my gosh, just look at this! Okay, here's the back. Here's the back. Yo, I'm so happy how this came out. I was praying the whole way through because I'm like, I have not sewed literally a sleeve. Like, I don't think I've ever sewed successfully a sleeve because I failed the exam for me to sew a basic bodice with sleeves. So this is my first sleeve and a set-in sleeve. Oh, and these gathers. I had to gather them like so close together. I don't know if y'all can see this, but like, look at the way the gathering is. Oh, oh, I am so happy. This is so cute. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and put this inside out. I'm gonna go ahead and press the seams because, you know, we gotta look professional over here. And then I'm gonna serge the edges. So once that's done, we have I believe there's one more step to do. As I'm struggling to open this. Okay. Yo, I feel like such a person, like an older person who has like a newspaper and is like just reading it. Okay. Okay, so all there's left to do is for view B, which is what I'm doing. I'm doing view B. What? Tongue tied. So all that's left for view B is to make the belt, make the fabric belt, and then to make thread loops. And I've never made thread loops before, so there's a lot of first times we're doing for this one. Oh, and slip stitch. I could be lazy and just edge stitch this, but we're gonna be fancy about it, and we're gonna be hand sewing in a little bit. Okay. Okay. On to serging. Okay, it's time to serge.
What about snow?
So we finally completed the final. Okay. Sorry, start over. Start over here. Start over. Okay. 1, 2. Okay, so I just completed the top. I had to go online. It's already unplugged. Hi y'all, so I'm back. This is the completed shirt. Well, I guess I would say more like a blouse. She's definitely voluminous. She is voluminous. I still don't know if I got it on the right way or not, but it's a lot more stomach than I would like to show. It's a lot more stomach, but thankfully the skirt for this pattern actually does come up a great amount, so I'll be counting on that. I did create the thread loops, but this side is secure and I don't know what happens. Every time I do this side, it just, as you see, falls. So I'm gonna have to, like, it literally unraveled on me. I don't know what I did so different on this side than I did on this side, but I'll be fixing that tomorrow. I guess when I get back to it. So I'm gonna give y'all a 360 view. But you know, you can't see the full glory of this shirt because I don't have the matching skirt. But I will give y'all just a sneak peek into what it looks like. Alright, if you've watched this video all the way to the end, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It has been probably about 3 years since I made my last sewing video because life happened, college started, and college got rough. So if you can't wait to see the skirt pattern, you know, if you can't wait to see it, then stay tuned. I will have it up. Or if you're lucky enough to already be looking at this video and I already posted the second video to this, part 2, just click in the oh my god. Ah. Okay, let's run it. Let's run it back. So, if you're ready to see part 2 of this video, can I get a like, hit the thumbs up button, and subscribe? That way I can post more videos for everyone to see. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Bye!